Carolina Panthers announced their starting center, and a debate is brewing at the wide receiver position among fans. Let's get you guys caught up.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. We're going to get right into the latest news for the Carolina Panthers. And folks, maybe a little bit surprised, but not if you've been following camp. Coming into training camp, I thought Cade Mays was going to be the front runner for the center position. We got confirmation from Dave Canales yesterday that Austin Corbett is going to be the starter moving forward. And the reason for making the decision now is the fact that, hey, you want to give Bryce Young an opportunity to work with him, build that familiarity, and get prepared for the game that is going to be coming up this week. So I don't think it's a surprise by any means, and I do think Austin Corbett is a very viable option with Cade Mays as a backup as well. The bigger question mark that we have on the offensive line right now is at the guard position, primarily left guard. And you look at Damian Lewis being week to week, trying to figure out what's going on with the shoulder. Chandler Zavala as well, slowly working his way back. Puts the Panthers in a little bit of a bind. There was a small scare yesterday, but not really a true scare with Robert Hunt, who was reported to have an injury. He got his ankle taped up, but he did come back to practice. The health of the offensive line is a big one because it's one thing to lose one player, but when you start stacking up all these injuries, it doesn't put yourself in a good position. And I personally wondered, just given the state of the offensive line, if Dave Canales may reconsider playing the starters going into the Houston Texans game. I don't think he will, unless something significant popped up and Robert Hunt was not able to go and you're missing two of your starting guards. Because at that point, you're really getting down into kind of similar to some of what we saw in the defense last year, but second and third string players. And then a preseason game with a lot of unknowns that can happen and, just putting yourself in risk situations, I don't know that they'd want to. But all that said, it seems like right now we'll keep you updated during the week that we're going to see the starters still saying a few series. We'll see how that plays out. The other thing that's top of mind for me is in general the state of the roster. So I've started to crunch numbers, and for those that are maybe not as in tuned with the roster and the breakdown, 53 players. Pretty simple. 3 of those are going to be special teams. So if you were to split it down the middle, it'd be 25 players on offense, 25 on defense. What we tend to see is, and it's not a true cookie cut science, but in some situations, teams usually like to carry a player or two more on the defensive side of the ball. You just know there's more of a need over there compared to the offense. So for me, I have been trying to crunch some numbers, and it's early, but I got to tell you, there's a few things that I'm continuing to watch. And I mean, they're the standard things that we're all talking about, but I have gotten the roster down to about 26 players, which isn't a bad spot to be in. But I still sit and wonder, as we've talked about the running back position, do the Panthers value ETN? Do they think ETN can perform what Raheem Blackshear can? That's a question, open question that we're going to have. And that all comes down to 3 or 4 running backs on the Panthers roster. You then think about the wide receiver position. That one speaks for itself. Is it going to be 6 or is it going to be 7? Who's the odd man out? Again, we can continue to debate it, go through that. We'll come back and talk about wide receivers here in just a little bit, as there is a little bit of internal debate that's happening in regards to two players on this team. Tackle position, center, right guard, right tackle, all those feels, buttoned up. What we are monitoring, like I said, is the status of Damian Lewis, getting Chandler Zavala back, both of those guys. Because when we start getting into the game of Jatir, Carter, or Kingston, one of these guys that are sitting back, you're going to have to kind of figure out, like, okay, something's got to give with the state of the roster. Now, I would anticipate or hope that, we get these guys healthy in time to return, because worst case scenario, you don't want to have to put a guy on IR or have a guy holding up a roster spot if he's not going to be available within the first 4 weeks of the season. So if he's not going to be available, that's when you go the route of IR. And then lastly, the tight end position. And it's a matter of, will the and man, we've come a long way from the Frank Wright era of 5 tight ends. Are the Panthers going to keep 3 or 4? And out of those 3 or 4, is Tommy Tremble going to be one that comes back? Because Tommy Tremble coming back bumps everyone else down. Maybe not necessarily JT Sanders, but it does put down Mitchell Evans, who I think is safe. And then James Mitchell would be on that bubble cut line. And I got to tell you, too, another name that's continuing to pop up, and he had a decent play the other night, Dominique Daphne. I don't know in the grand scheme of things where he's going to fall, but he's made some plays. And then we really get into some of the practice squad of who we would like back here, of course, if they clear waivers and they have less than 4 years of experience. Chance to hopefully nobody picks them up and we bring him back. But you do think about Jacoby George, you think about Bryson Tremaine, some of those names that have stood out a little bit as we've been through camp. And of course, we know we're going to have to build out the entire practice squad as we work to do that. So those are some of the storylines that I have, but I think it's time to chop up a little bit more, talk about one of the bigger storylines that relates to the ascension of Jalen Coker and expectations, or lack, kind of this phase that we're going through with Xavier Legette. And as we are starting to see, I think a story is unfolding for the Carolina Panthers. And I'm not saying it's a drama story. I don't think it's a locker room problem or anything like that. But there is something that's happening with, hey, like we're just seeing the results on the field. So last year, of course, you wanted to push the player you selected in the first round, Xavier. Like, you wanted to push him out there as much as you can. You still want to this year. But you had an undrafted free agent. Took a little bit longer for that undrafted free agent to get up to speed, see some playing time, miss some playing time. But in his 11 games, he almost outperformed Xavier, who played in 16 total games. You look at the breakdown between the two. Receptions, 32 receptions for Jalen Coker, 49 for XL. 478 receiving yards for Coker, 497 for XL. And we've talked about these things a lot during the offseason, but it's coming back up again. Receiving touchdowns, 2 for Jalen, 4 for XL, 14.9 yards per reception for Coker, 10.1 for XL. And then, of course, the drops, around 8 for XL and 1 for Coker. I mean, it's a big difference between the two. But it's been a very strong training camp for Jalen Coker. You look at him and his production, and it's not just what we see in practice. It's what we've seen in the game, the one-handed catch, the touchdowns. And it's only been one preseason game. So, we'll see how this goes. And I know XL had a fantastic fan fest, and he's also made plays along the way. But I do think we are seeing a surge, and it's a point where we're going to have to talk about it eventually. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, But as we get into the season, Dave Canales, Brad Idzik, Moore, they're going to have some decisions to make about which receivers they want on the field and how they want to get them the ball. And it's a healthy spot to be in. Like I said, I don't think it's one of, this new drama that's going to unfold in the locker room or anything like that. I think everyone's on the same page. But it's been a lot of positive comments when you go back and listen to what Canales has said about Coker, unprompted too, in a lot of situations, talking about him coming back a different athlete, about him having a plan and his routine, that the moment isn't too big for Coker, that he's done a great job in camp. He's been working through on special teams. Like he's giving him very high praise over and over. He has spoken positively with XL, but then you have the moment from the other night. And I'm not like, we've talked about what happened on the field. It's good to have a little bit of fight in you, yes, but it's also you gotta stay within yourself. You're not in boxing, like you're not in the UFC. You got to keep it contained. You're going to get kicked out, like we said, and that is going to get you hurt down the road. Now, I will say XL did come on and apologize. If you listen to his press conference, I know he tweeted out, that's just a state of like where we are in the football world, in the sports world. Somebody gets ejected, then they go to the locker room, and then they immediately tweet it out an apology, which was fine. It's what happened. But I do look at this dynamic between these two guys. And if you look at the depth chart today, with Jalen Coker being behind XL as it is, I do think if we're going to really preach this idea of competition and bringing it and putting the best players on the field, that it may be a situation come week one where it's Tedero McMillan, Adam Thielen, and Jalen Coker as your three starters. TBD. And I mean, again, I don't think it necessarily means anything right now. It's a good position for the Panthers to be in, to have 3, 4, 5, honestly, like we've said, 6 wide receivers that can get on the field and give you a play. I just feel like the play of Jalen Coker has definitely taken a step forwards in comparison to XL. But I'm not one to write off XL. I'm not. There's no reason to write off him. And I know some people are still kind of like, in the weeds, and some people are still mad and like, oh yeah, I'm not buying into him. I don't see it. I get it. But I just think we got to give him a little bit of time. So that's a roundup on the internal gossip. And there's a lot more takes out there. If you want them, you can find them. People on both sides that have a little more passion with their particular belief on the situation with this wide receiver battle that's going on in the Carolinas. So we did talk a little bit about injuries. I want to get you guys caught up. As we said, Damian Lewis with the shoulder strain. I believe someone tweeted out yesterday that he was in a brace, like a shoulder harness. So he is week to week. I mean, there's definitely time between now and the start of the season for him to be ready. Not the greatest spot to be in. Same thing with Chandler Zavala. We talked about him being week to week as well. Hopeful, though, for Chandler to be available for the final preseason game. Dave Canales did say that. He hoped that Chandler would be able to get back into the lineup. You need the practice. We all need the practice, so I think it's important there. J.C. Horn missing time, although they did say, if it was a game week in the season, he would have been able to play. But there's no reason to push him through the cut on his hand that happened from the accident. So, no reason to do on that. So just remaining cautious. We talked about Robert Hunt getting his ankle taped up. Should be okay. I guess they'll continue to monitor that. Well, Brian Ray has a high ankle sprain. He's listed as week to week. And then Claudin Cherilus, still waiting on him. I believe they said possibly a groin injury. Just linebacking core just can't stay up and healthy. And Derek Brown officially returning to practice. We know he's kind of pacing himself in there as we go through this to, work his way back in, which is good. And I don't think they should try to pressure this at all. So we pretty much moved into the ebbs and flows of what the season is going to look like. I mean, a little bit different because they practiced yesterday, and usually you're going to have Mondays off following a game on a Sunday. But we're into the game week, and one of the things Canales talked about was the team responding, not starting out slow. This is why I'm always like, there's some people who say preseason doesn't matter, then some folks that do. I'm in the field of leaning towards it matters more than people say. And I say that because Dave Canales clearly not happy that they didn't come away with a win. And I think any coach wants to win anytime they step on the field, no matter what it is, no matter the situation, they want to get a win. And they weren't able to do that. And they responded. And of course, they got to, we at least, I don't know how much they're tuned in, got to hear all the Shedeur Sanders hype and conversations that have come with all that. But we're back to practice, getting into the groove. And so now you're going to have joint practice with the Houston Texans on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday or Thursday? It says Wednesday. I'm looking at my calendar. Wednesday the 14th, but that's a Thursday. So with that said, you're going to have joint practice with them. I think it's a great opportunity for us to gauge this team a little bit better. And especially heading into the preseason game on Saturday, really getting a feel for how this team is going to be, getting into the game flows. I'm guessing Idzik's still going to call the plays. We'll find out. I'm not, super concerned with that at all, but I still have a lot of concerns about defense. The defensive side of the ball continues to worry me. You look back at what Christian Roseboom's performance looked like. He did have some okay moments, but not more things that worry me than things that made me say, oh, yeah, this is great. Same thing with Trevin Wallace. I'll tell you, Nick Scorton, you go back and watch him, a lot of positive there. I think it's just one of these things we're going to have to sort through. And I think you insert a Derek Brown, you get back a JC Horn, you put those pieces in there. Guys kind of get the flow of playing together. And I still am in the camp of a belief that this team is going to be better on the defensive side of the ball than they were last year by a decent margin. Like, I'm not talking incremental improvements. I feel like this team should be greatly improved in a lot of facets of the defensive side of the ball. Again, there's some concerns that we're still going to have. We'll see it play out on the field. And I don't think the problem is you're not going to be able to just scoop up a linebacker. Still TBD what they're going to do at safety as we continue to talk about, but I hate harping on the same thing, so I don't want to talk about it today. Anyways, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode. This is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.